The BBC presents My Word. And here to introduce the program and the panel is Jack Longland.
My Word is a word game played by people whose business is words, and those taking part are Arnott Robertson, Nancy Spain, Frank Muir, and Denis Norden. And we go straight into round one, which attempts to test their vocabulary. 2 marks if they get the meaning of the following words right. We begin with Arnott Robertson. Arnott, what is curare? C-U-R-A-R-E, curare.
Ah, Jack, that takes me back to my far distant childhood when all arrows were tipped with curare. A character whom I always thought of as the malefactor. In fact, he was a malefactor. He dipped the arrows in the deadly stuff and fired them at our hero.
Could you tell me just, I'll give you your marks, but what this poison comes from?
It comes from the root of the curare plant.
All right, fair enough. Several South American plants. Paralyzes the motor nerves and used by Indians for tipping
And fiction
their arrows.
writers.
And fiction writers, too. Denis Norden, what is a sparacle? S-P-I-R-A-C-L-E, sparacle.
Jack, are you quite sure that curare is a poison?
Well, it upsets the foundations of the universe if it isn't.
What's that hot stuff that Indian dishes are made of then?
Curry.
Good Lord. No wonder those guests were taken ill the other night. Spiracle.
That's it.
Spiracle is it's a form of neurosis suffered by parachute jumpers. Get hysterical in case they land on a church spire. It's a blend of spire and hysterical, and is known as the jumping syndrome. It's been authenticated, as haven't we all?
Jolly nice, and no marks.
It's the story of my life.
It's a breathing hole in animals, like the blowhole of a whale, what you breathe through. Nancy Spain, what is parturition?
Parturition? Well,
Yes.
that's childbirth, Jack.
That's right. Can be used of the mind, the birth of an idea, which must happen to you quite a lot. Frank Muir, what are ophidians? O-P-H-I-D-I-A-N-S, ophidians.
They're an Irish family, renowned in song, Jack. It's
None that I've
was
ever
an old
heard.
man called Mike Ophidian. His whiskers grew down to his meridian. Oh, my word, he was a Gideon, poor old Michael Ophidian. Very well known.
That's jolly nice, and quite wrong.
It's not. Oh.
No, they're snakes, or reptiles, which are members of the snake family. Sorry.
Got any more?
No. But before we begin the next round, I'm going to give each of the teams a quotation for them to write down, and I want the 2 women members of the team to study their quotations in the meantime, and at the end of the program, I ask them where the quotations come from. Arnott Robertson, Frank, you're listening. Your quotation is, "The lamps are going out all over Europe." And Nancy Spain and Denis Norden, yours is, "There is moderation even in excess." And then at the end of the program, I asked Frank and Denis to give me their ideas as to how these words really came to be said or written, and I don't want any of these answers just now. And so we go on to the second round, and here I'm going to give the first half of what I hope is a well-known Latin tag, 2 marks if you complete it and say what it means. Arnott Robertson, de mortuis.
Nihil nisi bonum.
Meaning?
Before you say what you think of any of us, be sure we're dead.
No, exactly.
Don't say anything unpleasant about the dead.
Don't say anything unpleasant about the dead. Don't speak no evil of the dead. Yes, hence most epitaphs. 2 marks. Denis Norden, Dossi et decorum est.
Pro patria mori.
That's it. And it means?
and it means the opposite of dolce vita, you know, it's
That's very true.
Dolce, sweet, and decorum is becoming proper. Sweet
Yes.
and proper it is for the fatherland to die.
Yes, that's good enough. That's what I call a dog translation.
Well, that's the way I
good
used
enough.
to do it,
2
yeah.
marks. It's sweet and becoming thing to die for your country.
They never could put their
Horace.
words in the right order, could they?
No, they've always got it backwards. Nancy Spain, in vino,
Veritas.
meaning?
When you're drunk, you tell the truth.
Quite right. 2 marks.
Well, it's quite false, isn't it? I sing, I don't talk at all.
It isn't of universal application.
You just lied.
I'm in the Rockies. I mean, nothing truthful about that.
Frank Muir, yours is per ardua.
Aspidestra. It's the it's the Royal Air Force motto.
Meaning?
In my day, it was a different Air Force then. We had sort of cardboard and wire and stuff on the planes. It's called Through Adversity to the Stars.
Yes, that's per ardua ad astra, which can mean through striving or through difficulties to the stars, or as the well-known film once put it, the way to the stars, the RAF motto. Well, in the next round, I'm going to give the names of the leading characters in well-known books of rather various vintages. 2 marks if you get the name of the book right and the author. Arnold Robertson, Heathcliff.
Wuthering Heights, it's Charlotte Bronte.
I'm going to give you 1 mark out of 2 because it's Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte.
Emily Bronte. Oh, well, Charlotte helped her sister.
If anybody did, it was Branwell, who was the brother. Denis Norden, quite a different one. Jim Dixon.
Lucky Jim.
Yes, by
Kingsley Amis.
2 marks, well done. Nancy Spain, Edward Malone,
Edmund who?
M-A-L-O-N-E.
Well, I have to write this
Edward Malone.
down. Malone.
He's the father of the girl with the cockles and mussels, isn't he? Edward Malone.
Malone?
Oh, it's All Our Tomorrows by E.V. Hutchinson.
Ah,
Yes.
H. Hutchinson.
No, E.V. Hutchinson.
E.V.
Yes, because
Oh.
there was an R.H. Hutchinson.
Yes, I know, yeah.
E.V. Hutchinson, All Our Tomorrows.
Well, you may be right, that makes it hard. But I don't think you are, because I don't think the Christian name would be
Well,
right.
I've never heard of him.
Go right back to the date of Sherlock Holmes, and it may help you.
Conan Doyle.
Yes?
Can't have been anything of the Sherlock Holmes stories. No. One of the historical ones, I suppose.
Half a mark, I think, because I did help you.
Oh, I don't
He's
believe
the
in that.
journalist who accompanied Professor Challenger in that great book, The Lost World, by Conan Doyle. Frank Muir, Salar, S-A-L-A-R.
It's got the same daddy as Tarka the Otter, Henry Williamson,
Yes.
and it's Salar the Salmon.
Quite right, 2 marks. Well, in the next round, what I'm going to do is to give each member of each team a quotation and ask them to complete it by the following line or lines. And they get 2 marks if they can get the quotation more or less right and completed, and 2 more if they say where it comes from. Arnold Robertson, they sell good beer at Hazelmere and under Guildford Hill.
But the swipes they sell at something or other inn is the very best beer I know.
Yes, you've missed out a few lines, but that's quite the right poem.
It's Hilaire Belloc, it's West Sussex drinking song.
Quite right. They sell good beer at Hazelmere and under Guildford Hill. A little cowfold, as I've been told, a beggar may drink his fill. There is a good brew in Amberley too, and by the bridge also. But the swipes they take in at Washington Inn is the very best beer I know. Hello, Belloc.
Early commercial.
Yes, it's obviously a commercial, but I think West Sussex drinking song. Out of date, probably. Denis Norden, nothing in the world is single, all things by a law divine.
Something mingle.
Yes?
Nothing in the world is single, all things by a law divine. Why don't you and I mingle?
That's
we
roughly
can't go
it.
to your place, you come round to mine.
It's a rather free version. What about
The
poet?
waters mingle with the something or other.
Yes?
The waters mingle with the something or other.
Yes.
But don't let it get into the wine. That's another. That's another one entirely. That one.
No, it's not.
Let's have the poet.
Let's have the poet. Will the poet stand up?
I think
E.V. Hutchinson.
poor chap got drowned.
Got drowned?
Oh, Shelley.
Shelley?
All right, one charity marker. No, 1.5, because you got part of the quotation right.
I got one word.
Nothing in the world is single, all things by a law divine, in one another's being mingle, why not I with thine? So you got the sense of it rather accurately, I think.
Well, those things
Love's
don't
Philosophy
change.
by Shelley.
By Shelley, yes.
Now, Nancy Spare. Out, out, brief candle.
Life's but a poor player who struts and fruts his eye
I
upon
always
the
say that.
stage.
I always say struts
And
and
then
fruts.
he's seen no more.
It's not struts and
Well,
fruts.
struts and fruts
Take a
will
deep
do
breath.
very well.
Take a deep breath, Nancy, and start again.
Life's but a poor player who struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is seen no more. Out, out, brief candle.
That comes earlier.
Oh. I've gotten a groove, haven't I? It's out of Macbeth by William Shakespeare.
I
It's said
think-
by Macbeth.
I think you scrape your 4 marks.
Long
It's
enough.
Macbeth, just after he's been told that his wife is dead, she should have died hereafter.
There should be time hereafter, yes.
There would have been a time for such a word. Out, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. 'Tis a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Now, Frank Muir. O mistress mine, where are you roaming?
W. Shakespeare,
Yes?
Twelfth Night.
Twelfth night it is.
O mistress mine, where are you roaming? Oh, stay and hear your true love's coming. She can sing both high and low.
Jolly good.
And it goes on.
Trip no further, pretty sweeting.
What?
Trip no further, pretty sweeting.
Trip no further, pretty sweeting, journey's end in lovers' meeting,
Every
as any
wise-
wise
every
man's
wise
son
man's son
doth
doth
know.
Well, between you, you've got it quite accurate, so I'm not going to repeat it. Shakespeare, Twelfth Night, The Clown's Song. Well done. Well, in the next round, we come to Dickens. For 2 marks each, what were the Christian names of the following Dickens characters, and in what book did they come? Honest Robertson, Mr. Tupman.
Oh, it starts with an E. Eddie Edward.
No. Nice name, but it isn't the right one.
Is he Arthur Tupman? Mr. Tupman.
No.
No,
Let's gain
Tommy
time
Tupman.
by
It's
saying
it's alliterative. It's Tommy Tupman. Or
Pickwick Papers.
Pickwick Papers, yes.
And the Dingley Dell.
Yes, all
and
there.
they were all there at Christmas.
No, I think 1 out of 2.
Theodore.
It's Tracy
Tracy.
Tupman in Pickwick
Philadelphia
Papers.
story.
Now to Denis Norden. Mr. Squares.
Mr. Squares is Wackford Squares.
Yes. In?
He ran the school in Nicholas Nickleby.
Yes, Nicholas Nickleby, Wackford Squares. Well done. Yes. Nancy Spade. Mr. Scrooge.
He's the rather unfortunate man in A Christmas Carol.
And his Christian name?
Ebenezer.
Ebenezer Scrooge, Christmas Carol. Well done. 2 marks. And Frank Muir. Mr. Micawber.
Mick.
He hadn't got one because Mrs. M always called him Mr. Micawber.
Yes, he did, but he had a Christian name too. Book first.
Oh, David Copperfield.
Yes, 1 mark for that. Any shot at the Christian name?
Sid. No, it doesn't sound right. That's, am I warm?
1 out of 2.
Yeah.
Wilkins. Wilkins Micawber from David Copperfield. And now we come to the last round, in which we go back to the quotations I gave the 2 teams earlier on in the programme. So first of all, for 2 marks, Arnott Robertson, can you give me the origin of your quotation? And if you remember, it was, "The lamps are going out all over Europe."
Yes, roll up that chap. We shan't need him for a long time. It's Grey at the beginning of World War One.
Yes, and he was at that time.
Was he
Third
Prime
on
Minister,
sec.
wasn't he? Or Foreign Sec?
A tea,
Yeah.
a well-known tea.
Anyway, he was a minister.
Yes.
Foreign Secretary.
Yes, he was the
Well-known
minister who
mixture.
most mattered at that point. He was Foreign Secretary.
Secretary.
And he spoke it on the 3rd of August, 1914, just before war was declared, and is said to have been standing, I think, in the Foreign Office windows and watching the lights going out over London, and said, "The lamps are going out all over Europe. We shall not see them lit again in our lifetime." Now, Nancy Spain, the origin of yours, which was, there is moderation even in excess.
Disraeli said it.
Yes, he did. Or said it is perhaps not quite right.
Wrote it.
Do you know the book?
Danced it.
Oh, well, it's one of those novels that he wrote.
Yes.
Like Coningsby or...
Not that one.
Son of Coningsby.
All right, I give you your marks.
We
It's
meet-
Benjamin Disraeli, Prime Minister of England, in a book, Vivian Grey. And now I ask Frank and Denis to give me their explanation of how these quotations came into being, and in this round, the marks will go to whichever unlikely explanation gets the larger amount of applause from you, the audience. So you come in very definitely at this point. So back again to Frank Muir, what really happened with the lamps are going out all over Europe.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, unaccustomed as I am to public, I hope to... hope the public will stay with me for the next few moments while I tell you a little of my past life. This actually I have written into a book, my memoirs, called Summoned by Bills. But this actually is a story of my young days on the beach at Broadstairs, where I was brought up. We played all day on the beach. There was I, and there was my best friend, Cyril Ratcliffe. And there was a girl there, Stephanie, little Stephanie. She was a tomboy. Her hair was cut like a boy. She might have been a boy, come to think of it. No, she wasn't. No, she wasn't. I know, because now she's entirely different. Now she's a marquise. She married Charlie Keyes. She's got 4 children. And then into our little group here, came a rather strange character. It was realized that this was the time we were growing up. I was 16. I was the leader, the natural leader of the other two. And we had inquiring minds, you know, children of that age. Everything was new and fresh. Life was new. We wanted to know everything. If we saw a girl, we wanted to know, you know, how old she was, where she lived, whether she went out in the evenings. You know, this was the beginning of intellectual flowering. we were educating ourselves. We were learning really on this beach at Broadstairs all day. We were learning how to grapple with life. We were really bringing ourselves up, in a sense. We were, as it were, the self-raising flower of youth of the 30s. Then into our group came this strange lad whose name was Oliver Winstanley Yarrop. His father was quite a well-known man. He had his own airline. He used to check tyre pressures at the local garage. And quite a good job. He had his own flat. And young Oliver Yarrop was quite unlike us. He was small. He had an pale oval face with large violet eyes, and used to wear a little red bow tie, somehow withdrawn and distant and rather fragile. We worried about him because the one thing he wanted to do in life, he seemed not to be able to. He wanted to be a vet, you see, and he bought himself a thermometer, a veterinary thermometer, and he tried to teach himself the vet's craft. And he spent all day going round after animals, holding his hand out with this thermometer and saying, "Say ah, please say ah." And I saw him do it to a dog, and it was wonderful. In a few moments, the dog was eating out of his hand. He ate about 3 inches out of his hand. We wanted to cauterize the wound with a red-hot iron, you know, the way they did in the Napoleonic Wars, but the beach inspector stopped us and took him to the first aid tent. But, you know, it was just part of life. One took worries at that age. One took it in one's stride. One was young. Remember one game I invented on the beach? One early evening, we buried Oliver Yarrop completely in the sand. Then we blindfolded each other and tried to dig him out. Then the sun went in, and we fished our sandals out of the lapping water and walked home barefoot to our beds, and we had this long sleep of the happy and the physically exhausted. They were great days. I often wonder what became of Oliver Yarrop. I know that he wrote an opera during that time, the story of a contented cow It was called Lohengrin. And I know that, but we never found anything about. You know, I still have this feeling. You know, when the police came out and asked us, you know, I wasn't in at the time, but I wondered. I cannot remember digging him out again. I know he was in the hole. Anyway, nothing was ever heard of Oliver Yarb after that. He seemed to disappear from the face of the earth. It was one of those little tragedies. But I sometimes have the feeling, you know, that he has found happiness. And I sincerely hope that in some green pasture in the beyond, he is surrounded by a flock of little lambs, and he's holding out his thermometer, and in the words of Lord Grey, the lambs are going to Oliver Yarb.
I did so hope they'd dig him up again. Well, now we go back to Denis Norden and to his quotation, which was, "There is moderation even in excess."
Well, that's a real welfare state type of quotation, that is, isn't it? What's the good of excess if it's got moderation? Obviously, that cannot be the true meaning. We must seek elsewhere. I think I found it very early on, when I was about 19, I don't know, about 40 or 50 years ago now, and I was working on a newspaper at that time, giving advice to the lovelorn. The lovelorn is not that strip of grass in Hyde Park. It's people who have problems in their romantic life. It was around about that time that I first corresponded with Frank Muir, although, of course, I didn't know him as Frank Muir then. He was just worried blue eyes of Leighton. But I think I helped him, you know, the greasy skin hasn't come back. And I found that the majority of problems about which people wrote to me, particularly chaps, was on the subject of love letters. You know, women are very unreasonable about love letters. Anything that their sweethearts write to them is either too long, or too flowery, or too coarse. You know, we've all been through it, and these chaps happen to... If you think of the sort of typical English love letter, dear Else, nothing much to report, another blooming horrible day, it's been spitting since early morning, hoping you are the same. You know, it's hardly what you call calculated to inflame a girl. So the chaps used to write to me and say, you know, what sort of love letter should I write? And it was very difficult, you know, to find. But I hit on something. I thought, well, of course, the easiest way is to get famous love letters of history and get them to copy out phrases from it. And the one that I chose were the love letters from Napoleon to Josephine, which I don't know if you've read. They're pretty torrid, some of them, and we used to keep them in the British Museum, actually. You can still see the scorch marks on the... And I used to tell these chaps to copy phrases from that. Well, unfortunately, you know, it was good, but they used to copy the wrong phrases. You know, you can't rely on people for anything. And one chap got sued for breach of promise by a girl because he'd promised to make her Empress of Sardinia. And so I was really very hard put to it to think what to do, and suddenly I had what was obviously to me the solution, and that is, a girl doesn't want all this phrasing and vivid words and whatnot. There's only one thing she wants to hear, and I used to say to them, the chaps, all you write is this: darling, I love you. Yours, Reg, or Polonius, or, you know, whatever his name may be. X, 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 X. How much time? And so on, you know, and the girls used to read this, and they used to love it. They used to show it to their girlfriends at work and say, look what Reg, or Polonius, has written to me. Isn't it, you know, and show these 9 pages sometimes of X's and say, isn't he wonderful? I don't know how he thinks of it. You know? And it went down a treat until one time when this chap only wrote 4 pages of X's, and this girl had been used to 9 pages, and she sent his ring back. She said, "You're growing cold towards me." So that was that. So there was no answer at all, and I just used to write to them and say, well, look, don't bother to send love letters, because whatever you put down on paper to a woman, it's bound to land you in bother and trouble. And in fact, in these words, I used to say, there is botheration even in X's.
Well, I think by the vote of the audience, Denis Norden just wins in that story. And that brings us to a final score in which the closeness of the scoring is maintained, and Nancy Spain and Denis Norden win by half a mark from Arnott and Frank Muir, and that also brings to an end this edition of My Word.
In My Word, you heard E. Arnott Robertson, Nancy Spain, Frank Muir, and Denis Norden, introduced by Jack Longland. The program was devised by Tony Shryane and Edward J. Mason, and presented by the BBC.